Hopefully we're back. Another technical issue, but not with the Mac. It's with the internet or something.
All right, so welcome back. We left off with Steve helping his father out doing restoration work, fixing cabinets and other things in homes for people. And this was an opportunity for Steve to work closely with someone that was so important in his life. And it was an opportunity to really learn just by doing. And I'm sure at some level there was Steve was absolutely modeling his father, just as we're modeling Steve. And there's this incident, there's this occurrence that happens, and they're putting up the boards that go behind the cabinets themselves, so no one really sees it. It's not on the front that's where everybody who's in the kitchen sees it. It's the back that will be covered over by dishes and cans and who knows what else people put in the cabinets. So he says, why don't we just put the plywood, put something cheap in the back. No one's going to see it. And his father said, no, you put the same quality in the back as you would for others to see. You put the same quality because you know it's there. And this is a wonderful life lesson about really understanding that, you know, the cabinets on the outside, the things that people pay attention to, and when you use the same quality in the back, you'll know it's there, and you can take pride in that. So this is a wonderful instance and an early life lesson that Steve learns. Would you like to talk about school?
So here we have the young Steve Jobs, and the young Steve Jobs doesn't like his school. So he goes to see his parents, and he goes, I don't like my school, you have to send me to another school. And the school he was talking about was a lot more expensive. And his parents go, well, you know, we can't really afford that. And he's going, either you send me to another school or I'm going to drop out. And this is an early example of Steve Jobs' ability to influence other people and to have this vision of his life. Because when you have a vision for your life, for where you want to go, then nothing is going to stop you from getting there.
Now, keeping this in mind, having this vision, and knowing that you can make the impossible possible. A little bit later in Steve's life, in his childhood, he calls one of the founders, or the founder of Hewlett-Packard, and he's calling originally to make a purchase, and he ends up being on the phone with Mr. Hewlett for 20 minutes.
This is like the founder of one of the major computer companies in California, in the US, in the world. He happened to find the guy's name and number in the phone book, and he just phones him up.
And after that 20-minute conversation, Hewlett helps him get a job, helps him find work. Just by making that connection, reaching out, Steve was able to take advantage of resources that most people would have overlooked. And yet it's like when you know that there's an opportunity there, and you really know it. And this is what allows you to bring dreams into reality. Now similarly, his friend Steve Wozniak makes another call. And he decides he wants to call the Pope. This actually happened. Who did he just say he was?
Kissinger.
He was as Henry Kissinger.
This is Henry Kissinger. I need to speak to the Pope.
And he gets through. This, once again, is all about seeing whatever most people think is limitations and understanding that they really aren't. And you can absolutely do things that other people say are impossible.
I think he actually got through to a cardinal, but hey, it's not bad.
Yeah, you know, it's a start. So this is once again about surfing that wave of making reality into what you want. And this is something that Steve knew from early on, that you can get exactly what you want out of life and achieve your goals. It really is about taking the action, picking up the phone and making the call. Now, at one point, this is kind of a fun story, Steve talks about seeing a calf be born. And when this calf is born, it gets up and it walks pretty immediately. It's not like us humans who, lie around for 6 months or a year. The calf is up and walking right away. And something really important occurs to Steve at that moment. There is a balance. And it's a balance between hardware and the software, if you will. It's a balance between having the aesthetic and also having the functionality.
Combined in one thing. Because prior to that, there was a computer and then there was software. And they were different. They didn't combine. They didn't necessarily fit. Steve Jobs' view was this marriage of form and function, which was what allowed the calf to stand a minute after its birth.
And this theme of form and function carries through in everything that Steve developed from there on out. It's understanding that these aren't opposites, but it's when you unite form and function. Then it becomes not only is it achieving the impossible easy, but it's done in such a way that, first of all, makes sense, and for Steve, it happened in a way that made other people line up for days to get the latest technology, the latest invention, the latest creation from Steve Jobs and the Apple company. That uniting of form and function. Now, Steve's parents promised to send him to college. And they did. They sent him to Reed College, which is a liberal arts school out on the West Coast. And one of the things that Reed College is known for is calligraphy. It's one of the finest schools to go to learn the art of calligraphy, of fonts, of words. And in fact, if you walked around Reed's campus, all of the signs and posters and maps were all done in the most beautiful and diverse expressions of language in terms of font. It really was all about the aesthetic. Now, Steve spent 6 months there. He spent most of an academic year. And he came to a conclusion. His parents had pretty much drained their savings to afford the school for him, and found that the school didn't help him know where he wanted to go. He didn't know what he wanted to do with his life, and sitting in a classroom didn't help either. So he dropped out of school, but he didn't leave, because once he formally withdrew, he then stuck around and audited classes, took whatever classes sparked his curiosity. He took classes in computer programming and engineering, in art, in philosophy, and of course, in calligraphy. He was able to pursue any and all of his intellectual interests. It was about not necessarily having to find his way in terms of these big lofty plans of getting a 9-to-5 job, having a family, moving to suburbia type. It was all about pursuing things for the love of it. You follow through because you love it, because it fascinates you so much that you can't help to do it. It's just impossible, really, to do anything other than to pursue those interests. At least that's how Steve saw it within the context of his education.
And it was taking that class which led him to his famous line, "You can't connect the dots when you look forward, only when you look backwards. And he was saying he had no idea when he took that class that he would be using that idea of fonts to design the fonts for the Mac. Now, when we get on to really the 4 traits that make Steve Jobs the genius that he was, we'll be talking more about those dots and really how that idea of the connection of the dots really feeds into how he was able to do the things he did.
Do we want to play the clip now or later?
We can play it now. We'll play you a brief video clip. Okay, it's now at 9:40 or so.
Okay.
So we need to kind of... although we have 10 minutes left. Why isn't it playing?
There we go.
Reed College at that time offered perhaps the best calligraphy instruction in the country. Throughout the campus, every poster, every label on every drawer was beautifully hand calligraphed. Because I had dropped out and didn't have to take the normal classes, I decided to take a calligraphy class to learn how to do this. I learned about serif and sans serif typefaces, about varying the amount of space between different letter combinations, about what makes great typography great. It was beautiful, historical, artistically subtle in a way that science can't capture, and I found it fascinating. None single course in college If I had never dropped out, I would have never dropped in on that calligraphy class, and personal computers might not have the wonderful typography that they do. Of course, it was impossible to connect the
Buffering.
Shall I turn it off?
Yeah. Sweet all the time.
Looking forward, only backward. And I'm going to suggest that what Steve Jobs